With 2 wins this past week in the books, we welcome you inside to another edition of the Stephanie Gaitley Show. Tom Terzulli and Jack McLoone, delighted to be back with you. And let's get into that first win right away, Coach. First Atlantic 10 victory in the first Atlantic 10 matchup against a team in Duquesne that's historically dominated Fordham. They were 21-5 against the Rams coming into that game, a team you've only beaten one time in your tenure here, the team that knocked you out of the A-10 tournament. Going into that game, was it sort of like striking a balance between two overly motivated and having that in the back of your mind?
I mean, it was a little bit of everything. I was concerned after the effort against Grambling State because I thought that, we had a chance to show our maturity as a team, and we didn't. And then I was, pleasantly surprised by the fact that we came out laser focused. Not surprised because I knew that we'd be locked in defensively, but really, really proud of the kids that they sustained it for 40 minutes. We haven't been able to really put a 40-minute effort together, and the fact that Danielle Burns woke up from her Thanksgiving food coma, down in Thanksgiving, man, she picked a great time to break out of that, and she scored 22 the day before her 22nd birthday, which was very, very apropos.
You have this incredible knack of stealing my questions immediately, because that's what I was going to ask
it's
about.
Sabotage.
Talk about Danielle Burns, but so I guess I'll move on from that one because you answered it already. Lauren Holden was matched up against Oma Grosso for Duquesne, who came into that game as their leading scorer, and she didn't score it once. How big was getting that from Lauren?
I've been trying to tell Lauren because, even against BC, she struggled from the field, and I was doing some shooting with her after practice, just saying, Lauren, do not measure yourself by offense. I said, because defensively you've done such a terrific job. Measure yourself by defense. I at one point was almost 0 for December at Villanova my junior year, and they were all like 5 feet and in. So I said, don't even worry about the offensive end because she has done such a terrific job owning the defensive aspect of it. So I'm really proud of that. And, again, offense to me is a bonus when we get it from her.
Talking about the defense, Oma Grosso wasn't the only player you had to stop. There were 3 double-figure scores in that starting lineup for Duquesne, and the other 2 were in the front court. And you got 18 points from Cardian last, but then her neighbor in the front court, Amadeus Samasi, she only played 20 minutes. She was in foul trouble. How much of a help was that you only had to deal with one big at a time almost that entire game?
Oh, that was huge because they present so many difficult matchup situations because they can go inside out. Typically you face a team and there's at least 2 kids you can sit in the lane and help on defense, and I think that's where we're very good at. But when you play a team that really stretches a defense like they do, it makes it very difficult. So it definitely helped us when she picked up foul trouble. And then G got in foul trouble as well, so it kind of evened itself out in certain ways. But, I thought overall the kids totally committed to the game plan. And I think, getting a win under our belts in December, as much as I'm not a fan, obviously, of playing in December, it's nice to be able to put one in your back pocket right now.
And you mentioned how good Duquesne coming into the game was at stretching the floor. How big was it that you hit all those threes in that game, shooting 50% from 3? How big was that?
That was huge. Because that just opens the game up for you and, it forces them to defend the perimeter and opens you up a little bit inside. So, we picked up some big games from different kids. So for us, if, we're difficult to stop if we're able to knock down the three-point ball.
10 threes in that game, like my partner Jack McLoone mentioned. And you mentioned also that Jamaris Davis struggled with foul trouble in that game. She was the #1 scoring option in Miami. And then you come in this game, she only has 9 points to go along with 10 rebounds, but the fouls kept her on the bench a lot of the game. How great was that to see that other players stepped up? Danielle Burns, Hannah Mystery, other players stepped up in the scoring column to make up for Jamaris only having 9 points.
It's huge because it's a confidence builder. It's kids knowing they can do fine without her on the court, and also for G to see that, not to feel any pressure of knowing that we're okay. And I've been trying to play with putting kids back in with 2 fouls. I'm typically a type of coach that with 2 fouls, I'll usually keep you on the bench till the third quarter. But because of the fact that she brings so much to the table, I've tried to trust her that she can go back in the game and not pick up that third early. So she's done pretty well by it so far.
And how big was it? You had some trouble down in Miami with turnovers, and you still had a decent amount against Iona, but the 16 was a lot less than it's been. So how big was that as well? That just a big part of staying focused?
You know what? They didn't apply much pressure, for us, but for us, we put an emphasis on it. Our emphasis is defense and taking care of the ball. Like a good shot in every possession. If we shoot 20% but we get great shots, you know what? It's just one of those nights. But typically speaking, if we take a good shot, we're going to be we've pretty good shooters. So typically the odds will be in our favor that we shoot fairly well. it's very rare during a season where everybody's on all cylinders. But when those games happen, you're a pretty special team, especially if you're a defensive team like us ourselves.
To stay with the theme of stealing things from Jack, I'm going to steal a point that he made in the Duquesne game that I liked a lot. He said in that Duquesne win, you guys came as close this season as you came to being the team that you want to be, a team that will always shut down the other team defensively, guaranteed, takes care of the ball, and then on the offensive side of the ball, plays inside out, has three-point threats. Is that a fair point that my partner made?
Hey, Jack, if you're working for me, typically when somebody makes a good point, I say, take tomorrow off. It's a day that I figure that we'll have off. Take Sunday off. Great point. Take Sunday off. You've earned that. No, great point. I think he's right on the money with that. It's just that if we can play like that and consistently play like that, we're going to be in a position to win every game.
So moving on from that Duquesne game, we're going to move into the second win of the week, Boston College. And we talked about this on last week's show. It was no rest for the weary. You go against the second-ranked team in the conference going into that game, and then a tough ACC team in Boston College that played some really good teams. So the 2-5 record could have been a little bit of a deception. But talking about that game, Boston College, it was really grinded out. They shot 49%. You guys shoot 39% and yet still win. They turned the ball over 17 times. Was that the difference?
I mean, I thought we pretty much stayed true to our defensive game plan. I mean, we wanted the big kid to get rid of it. We knew that her and Hughes were, they scored over 50% of their points. So I thought we did a good job taking Hughes out of the game, and she didn't get a lot of easy looks. I think she ended up with 4 points. But the big kid, what makes her so difficult to defend is she's a very strong passer and a very willing passer. So we tried to double her, but then she started getting comfortable finding the open person. So then we had to, kind of tweak it a little bit and sometimes go single coverage on her. But I think, I do think there was a little bit of a hangover from the Duquesne game, a little bit, and I think that came into play. But again, keep in mind, this schedule with Duquesne at this time of year was not part of our plan. We didn't intend to play Duquesne and then BC. So I was proud of our kids being able to bounce back from that.
Kate in that game was 3 of 4 from 3, and we're going to talk to her a little bit later, but how big was it for her to finally get going from deep?
It was huge because she's capable of having the breakout games. Like, Kate's capable of bringing those type of statistics on a regular night. I think, for her, it's just confidence. It's getting comfortable. She's playing a spot so different than what she's used to. Like, when I saw her and I recruited her, she was point guard. So, she's doing things, that, stepping out, posting up, which actually will help her overall game when she goes to play with her national team. But it is new to her. So, I'm proud of her because we've demanded a lot of her, and she's definitely embraced it.
You mentioned her already, Fasula, the 6'4 center for Boston College. She matched up with G. G scores 22 points in spite of being 2 inches shorter. Watching that game, I thought the difference was two things. Footwork defensively on Fasula's part that Jamaris was able to exploit, and the fact that Fasula really wasn't willing to come out there and play her on that 10-foot jumper that she's been developing this season. Is that a fair assessment as to why she 22 points offensively?
It is a fair assessment. I mean, G made some tough shots, and she got doubled and knocked down some tough shots. If you look at her field goal percentage last year, it was not strong. And so with us, we've been trying to work on her being able to be a 50% shooter from the block. But where she's really improved her game, I said to her, if you can knock down that 8 to 12-footer on a consistent basis, I don't know who's going to stop you because her first step is so quick. And if she can have, like, counter moves on the block, 1 or 2 counter moves. And I told her this summer, let's not mess with, like, 10 different 10 different looks on the block, like 10 different moves. Let's own a few. So now she has a couple counters, and I think she's getting much more comfortable with that position.
Looking at these two games as a whole, coming out of this weekend 2-0, after struggling a little bit down in Miami, how big was it to bounce back like that in these last two games?
I mean, I think it was huge. I thought overall we played well against Texas Tech, but again, we didn't get anything from Kate. We didn't get anything from Danielle Burns. So, I mean, that was difficult for us to try to beat a Big Five power conference without 2 or 3 kids. Even our bench, we didn't get a great contribution from our bench. We're not going to beat those teams. And we don't need all 5 people playing great. Like against Notre Dame, I told the kids, we're going to have to be working on all cylinders to knock off a number 1 team on their court. We don't need to be having everybody playing the perfect game to knock off a Texas Tech, but we need everybody to at least be somewhat, productive from an offensive end, and we were really limited across the board there.
Coach, we'll end off this segment with this. Last week, 1-1 in Miami. Now coming out of this week, 2-0, including a victory against a team that was ranked preseason second in the conference. Is the team in a better place than it was after the Miami trip?
Oh, no question. I mean, I think that Duquesne game, especially with this senior class, knowing the only win against them was their freshman year, was something that was sitting there and kind of looming in their back and their mind. And I think getting that monkey off their back was something that was really, really important to them. And I think it was a great kickoff to that week.
All right, Coach, thanks so much. We'll be back with the Looking Ahead segment on the Stephanie Gaitley Show. Tom Terzulli and Jack McLoone here with the On the Court segment of this week's edition of the Stephanie Gaitley Show. And Jack and I are joined by Asnate, Fomina, and Kate Greslina. Guys, you're both from the same place in Latvia. In fact, you went to the same high school. So starting off, when you guys both came to Fordham, did that help adjusting? Did you immediately gravitate towards each other?
Yeah, I think definitely, because we were friends before that, and we also played for 1 year. We always played in national team together.
Right.
We went to the same high school. We played for high school team and also for club team. Club team
and two national teams.
Yeah.
What's that experience like? This wasn't going to be my next question, but just hearing that you played on the national team together, that interests me. Playing on a national team, what is that like against other countries on a national stage?
Those are completely different feelings, I guess. It's during summertime when all leaders come together and you just fight for your country. And, it's completely different. You can compare with the season.
Yeah. It's like the main point of the whole season, of the whole year, yeah.
To focus more on your time here, you guys obviously both in basketball, and it's actually Fordham, it's almost finals time. How do you guys deal with balancing playing basketball and also dealing with your schoolwork? I know we have class right after this. I know it's kind of tough.
First years are difficult because you have to adjust to everything. It's a huge transformation, and especially English. Like, I was struggling with it always.
Where's my dictionary? Translate all words.
Yes, after class you gotta go and Google everything what the teacher said because you didn't understand what they said. But now it's easier.
Yeah.
We're getting through.
You're getting there, and I can't even imagine. It's really a tough adjustment. I can't imagine going to another country where I don't know the language, not only having to balance a college sports career, but to go to class and get good grades not knowing the language. What made you want to do it? What made you want to come to New York, come to Fordham, take on all these challenges and play as a Ram?
Well, it was my dream to come to United States because to play in a good level and also to get education, United States is the best place where to go. And New York, actually, Fordham was the only school I visited, and right away I felt I belong here. So I like the coaching staff, and New York is awesome. So I wanted to go somewhere where it's like nice to be, and where I can experience something else besides like court and classes.
Right, exactly.
For me, it was all about education, and I hear that Fordham has a really good academics.
Yeah.
So Asnate told me about Fordham, and I said, okay, if you are there, I'm gonna go.
She influenced you just a little bit.
I got you.
Looking more into a little bit on the court stuff and talking to you guys individually, Kate, in the game against Duquesne, the game against Princeton, you finally started going from hit 3 or 4 threes. What's it like to finally get your 3-point shot going? I know you'd struggle a little bit this year with that. Was it nice to finally hit those threes?
I mean, my defender, she wasn't that close to me, and I just decided to take those shots.
They gave you open space. Might as well shoot it. Yeah.
Yep.
It was nice for me because I was jumping all around. Go, Kate.
Love seeing the teammate from high school and now here succeed together. Kate, another question for you. You were obviously redshirted last year, so this is your first year playing. Did you ever find yourself last year sitting watching these games like, man, I want to get in there so badly?
Yeah, but I was injured, so I got ACL, and it's long rehab, so I just needed to be patient. I was watching, just cheer for them, and just next year is going to be my year.
And it has been so far this year.
I mean, it's not about me, it's about we.
Well, yeah, it's look at that. Maybe you have a coaching career in your future, Kate.
You're worried about coming on. You have all the right answers. And so it's not Tacona. You do a lot of different things for the Rams. We've talked to Coach Gaitley about how you can score and you can play a lot of good defense. So what's it like being relied upon and to do a lot of different things for the team?
Well, I think it's a good advance because some players are only shooters. They don't look to drive, or some players are good on defense and not as good on offense. And I guess being a creative is the right place how to play.
Talking about defense for you, Kate, you match up a lot with top scorers on the other team. How much pride do you take in your defensive game?
Coach always focus on defense.
Right.
Right now, I'm just a little bit struggling with defense, but I have to get used to how it is because it's like a little bit different from Europe style how we play on defense. So it will take a time, but I try my best. Actually, in Latvia, I played as a guard, and now I have to guard. Now I have to defend players who are like forwards, and it's like
Yeah, let me
sometimes
ask you
hard
about
for
that
me.
because Coach Gaitley said when she recruited you, you were a point guard when you
Yeah.
started out. What's the difference been like now that you have to, like you mentioned, go up against a lot taller players? What changes for you defensively?
I have to be most of the times in the paint and just use my post moves, but I mean it's not that bad.
She got it.
Yeah.
She's getting
I
it. She's getting it.
got it. It's not that bad. I just take everything what coach like asked me, or those are new opportunities for me. I mean, yeah.
These last 2 games, you guys went 2-0 the last week. How much better do you guys feel as a team having won those 2 games? 2 really tough games.
Both of you can
Yeah,
answer
yeah,
that,
you
or
want
one
to
of you
answer.
can answer it.
Well, it feels amazing. Like, it's always good to win those games, and especially Duquesne was like, no one expected us to beat Duquesne and BC, so it's nice to show that we believe ourselves. So maybe like now someone else gonna believe us. So it's great to win
That is
those
great.
games. Yeah, just gotta keep going.
Right. And speaking of keep going, looking ahead now, you have Iona tomorrow night, and then you have Princeton on Saturday. Iona, it's your first trip since we were down in Miami for Thanksgiving, but this isn't one where you have to go on a plane or you're jet lagged from being on a plane for hours. Is this a trip that you like? Obviously, you guys are used to flying from Latvia to here, so that's a pretty long flight. So are these the trips that you like, the ones where you could just take a bus there and come back?
I believe that Iona is not that far from here,
Right, exactly,
But
so yeah.
still, it's always hard to play away games, but it's, I mean, good opportunity to beat them in their court.
It's at least easier because you don't have to get on a plane. You
Yeah.
could just
Yeah.
drive down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially and then you come back home and you play Princeton at home. So what's it like playing in front of at Rose Hill in front of the fans here? How do you guys like that? I guess compared to definitely road games, obviously.
Well, home games are the best because then we have fans who support us. But when we are away, then only the opponent fans are there. So I don't know. The band is great. Everyone is cheering. We are loud. The right music is on. We love it.
You're used to the
Yeah.
playlist at the Rose Hill Gym.
Yeah.
They play other music at Iona. You're like,
Yes.
what is this stuff? But we'll see tomorrow night what type of music they play. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck in the 2 games
Thank
this
you.
coming week. So that will conclude our On the Court segment here this week of the Stephanie Gaitley Show. Once again, a big thank you to Asnate, Fomina, and Kate Greslina for joining us. Tom Terzulli alongside Jack McLoone here on this week's edition of the Stephanie Gaitley Show. We just finished off talking to the Latvian duo of Kate Greslina and Asnate Fomina. Now Coach is back with us, looking ahead to the 2 games this week for them. Tomorrow night they got Iona, and then on Saturday they face an Ivy League team in Princeton. So Coach, looking at first this Iona game tomorrow night, a local team, a close road trip. Is that in the back of the mind a little bit that you want to establish dominance as like the #1 program in the local area?
I haven't really talked about that as much as the last time we played them 2 years ago. They spanked us here in our home opener, and that has not been removed from this kid's minds. So we're very well aware of how well coached they are. Billy's done an outstanding job. They're an NCAA team. They won the MAC last year. They've already beat VCU. At VCU. They've already beat St. Joe's. They played Duquesne to a very, very good game. So this is a team that's very, very strong. And so we're not really thinking about dominance in the area as much as thinking about just come out and be ready to play for 40 minutes.
So Iona has 3 players in double-digit scoring. They have 2 guards in Alexis Lewis and Marina Lazzaru, and then Karana Dupree with another 10 points as well. How do you kind of pick your poison in that regard, and who you kind of focus on to lock down?
It's interesting because it's definitely a different look from Boston College. I mean, their post player is a step out, and she's not a bang type kid like the big kid that we saw from Boston College. And now their point guard, and we had Erin Rooney in town, so she was part of our scout squad. That's Erin Rooney. That's who it is. I mean, she was the MAC Player of the Year, and she was a kid that really did a great job against us a couple years ago. And so Aaron was able to simulate that a lot for us in practice. And then, their leading scorer again is just a tough kid, and Billy's done a great job continuing to build off what Tony Bozzella has done. When he was first there, and I think it's going to be a war for 40 minutes.
This is the first road trip of sorts since the Miami road trip over Thanksgiving. No jet lag going to Iona. You don't have to go on a plane. Are these the trips that you like?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird for you because I'm so used to like going, staying overnight, being locked in, focused. But the fact that it's this close, you're still in your own beds and you're still doing your own shoot around at your own place. So, we'll get there a little bit earlier so the kids can get used to their rims, their balls, their baskets. But it's a great rivalry in the area, whether it be Manhattan, St. John's, Iona. I think it's a great opportunity for us.
And you mentioned that Iona has already played 2A10 teams this season. They beat St. Joe's by 1, and they lost to Duquesne by just 3. So now that you've had that one in-conference game against Duquesne, but you're now back in this non-conference schedule, how big is that to say, like, this is a team you know how they match up against the A10? Is this a good barometer for how the team's going to look in conference play in this game?
I mean, I guess you could look at that. I mean, St. Joe's was down 18 going in the fourth quarter, so they had really ballooned that out and, became a really tight game at the end. And to win at VCU, trust me, I've been there. It's not easy. And so that's 2 great wins by them. So for us, it's a measuring stick, so to speak, to see where we're at and to see, see what our growth is. This is a team that the last time we played them, we lost. So there should be a chip on our block, on our shoulders for that. We should have a chip. And I think hopefully our kids will respond to that.
Going into this Iona game after the victory against Boston College, Jack touched on it a little bit. They have a 6'4" center. Fasula was 6'4" on Boston College, but you said they're pretty different players in terms of how they play offensively and defensively. What differs in terms of the challenges that Iona faces as opposed to Boston College?
Well, the kid that we shut down from Boston College really wasn't somebody that would put the ball on the floor, and both kids for Iona will. They'll both get to the rim, and so the kid from Boston College was more like Hannah, like it's just a step back, knockdown shooter, and had great range. Both these kids have great range, the guards, and you have to play them off the dribble as well. So you got to be really locked in defensively. And then their big kid, obviously, she has a really nice touch, whereas the kid from Boston College was more of a back to the basket kid. This kid will take you off the dribble a little bit on the block, but really, does a great job facing up, and she's a presence defensively from a shot blocking standpoint.
Looking ahead to the game on Sunday, then you go and play Princeton back here at home. And again, another 6'4" center, and Bella Allaire for them, who's their leading scorer, averaging almost 15 a game. How is she different from the other two that you face? Is she more like one or the other?
She's basically a mix, to be honest. The hardest ones to defend are the ones like the Duquesne ones that can step out and hit the 3. So that's the hardest ones to match up with. And even though we're getting ready to break down tape on Princeton today, I've studied them, but I'm not locked in yet because I'm really locked into Iona. So I'll have a better idea after that. They graduated a lot, and they're just starting to come in and get full steam. I mean, they had a couple losses early. They lost at home to Ryder. They lost to Delaware, and then all of a sudden they spanked Rutgers, and they've had a couple really significant wins recently over Seton Hall, beat them by 30. So it's a team that's, young and growing in confidence. So, this is the end of this rival, so to speak. It's been a 3-year commitment. This is the last time we have an opportunity to play them. So hopefully, our kids will be ready to take on that challenge.
All those games you mentioned, that adds up to a 3-4 record. And Princeton, they sort of bring with them that Ivy League stereotype that they're going to be very disciplined, very fundamentally sound. How do you deal with that going up against them? Be just as disciplined, just as fundamentally sound, if not more?
Yeah, I think that's the way we are. I mean, I think that we're very disciplined, and I think it's similar to what Princeton does. I mean, their depth is good. They run a lot of kids in and out. So I think there's a lot of similarities. I think they have more size across the board than we do. We have a little more experience, with our seniors, I think, than them. So, in a lot of ways, I don't want to say it's a mirror image, but there's a lot of similarities between the two programs.
Is there something specific you're looking to see out of the team over these next 2 games? Because coming into the 2 games the last week, mostly you're looking to improve on turnovers. Is there something specific in these next 2 games?
Consistency. And the one motto that we had going through the 2014 season when we won it is you have to have a chip to win the ship. You have to have a chip on your shoulder. We lost to both these teams. We've lost to both of them. We haven't beaten them. So I think I haven't beaten Iona since I've been here. Well, obviously only played them once. Haven't beaten Princeton since I've been here. So these are chips that these kids should have on their shoulders, and an opportunity to see how much forward the program is going through these games.
Coach, 2 tough games this week after 2 tough games last week. Good luck. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it as always.